All right, everyone, we'll get started nice on time as usual. Welcome to Strive's Coaches Corner. For those of you who've been joining us for the past sort of 14 weeks, welcome back. For those of you who are new, welcome to our short 20-minute time together. We look at this as kind of an every other week chance to have a timeout, to have a halftime team talk, to kind of share some knowledge, share some tips and tricks, and then kind of go out into the world and try them out. Be it in this COVID era, be this in hybrid era, whatever it is, just kind of focusing in on that. My name is Linda Schulmeister-Guess. Many people know me as Coach Meister. I work for Strive, How You Lead Matters. And this is the work that we do all year round, all across the States, all the way from middle school age people to adults who work with those middle school ages, right? We really believe in how you lead matters. So we believe in providing young people the tools to actively develop as leaders, to grow, and not just ask them to lead, but help them to lead, right? And so that starts with us, right? It starts with us being socially, emotionally aware of how we're doing things, why we're doing things, and practicing them in the same way that we would practice our sports skills, right? We don't just expect a young person to get better at using their weak hand in basketball. We set up some drills and skills and give them feedback. We keep pushing them and challenge them, right? Well, we believe you need to do the same thing with these kind of soft skills, right? We can't just expect someone to be empathetic. Let's break that down the same way we would break down how to take a penalty kick in soccer, right? The different components, the different parts, what can we practice? How can we get better at it, right? And so over the last few weeks, we've been taking different topics that Strive does in-depth workshops on and just kind of giving you the highlights of it, right? This is what we want to talk about. And so today, we really want to talk about talking, right? We really want to talk about communication, and we're going to have a little bit of information about feedback in there as well, right? And how you as a coach can start creating a culture within where feedback is seen as a gift and where you're hyper aware of how and when and what you're communicating. All right. And so the way we always do it is kind of we think about what are some theory, what is some knowledge, and then what are some tools that we can try and implement as coaches with our team. So when we look at this, right? We think communication, and straight away we always think about verbal communication, right? Because it's what most of us, especially me, does the most, right? We talk a lot. But when you actually think about it, right? In every moment we're communicating something. We are reacting to something, right? And our reaction says something to others, right? Whether it's communicating what we actually are feeling and believing, or whether it's something else, right? But if you look at these different pictures, one of the things we always say is, if you're a coach of a team sport, if I looked at your bench without looking at the scoreboard, would I know if you're winning or losing? And I would guess 9 times out of 10, I probably would, right? What about if I looked at your face? What if I looked at your body language, right? In each way, right? It's not necessarily what you want to be communicating, but how could your body language, your facial expressions, your movements, your actions, what can they be communicating? Let's start thinking about that, because with awareness comes choice, right? I know I'm somebody who always had their arms crossed, right? Who always kind of sat back like this. And my players finally gave me the feedback, like, Coach, we're like nervous. We're nervous. We think you're about to be angry. And I'm like, oh my gosh, no, I'm just watching the game. Sorry, this is how I process. But realizing to them that they're on the bench kind of going, I think, do we think Coach is angry? And if that's what they're worried about in that moment, they're not focused on what I need them to be focused on. Right? So I became aware of my body language. I became aware of my facial expressions, right? And I challenge you, one of the ways to do it is get an assistant coach or somebody else to kind of give you feedback on this. Get your players to give you feedback on this, right? Because ultimately, why does this matter? What a player believes influences their behavior. Same for you, but what you believe influences your behavior, right? So if I believe I can do something, I'm far more likely to try it. If I believe it's safe to make mistakes and I won't be yelled at, I'm far more likely to do that behavior, right? Because how we function as humans is we're in an open loop circuit, right? We kind of make a decision, we have a belief, but then we look for outside information to confirm or deny what we believe. right? So if I believe I can do something and it's safe to make mistakes and I take that action, but then the feedback is anger or negativity or perceived anger and negativity, I just got my feedback. It's going to change my belief. Now I don't think I'm allowed to make mistakes. I won't repeat that behavior. Right? So we want to constantly be thinking about how is our feedback, how is our communication, verbal, non-verbal, influencing the belief of our players and thus the behaviors we want from them or don't want from them. This works in a positive manner as well, right? If I believe I will be rewarded for busting my backside in this fitness test, I'm going to do it. But if I'm the first one to cross the finish line, the coach just goes, yeah, good job. And then focuses on everyone else. I'm like, well, that didn't work. But if the coach is there cheering them on, high-fiving them, they're so hype about that, they're like, yes, that confirmed what I thought. I'm going to do that again, right? So we've got to constantly be thinking about how we communicate and how is that filling the belief of the player. And we know, right, that to be a successful athlete, to be a successful human, right, we must possess a growth mindset, right? We must see challenges and opportunity to grow rather than be fearful of them. We must look at setbacks as a wake-up call to work harder rather than to blame others and get discouraged. And I know you're already sitting there thinking, I can name players who I know are in a fixed mindset, right? Well, as a coach, how can we start cultivating an environment, a culture, where a growth mindset is affirmed? Think back to how you're communicating and when you're communicating and how it affects beliefs and behaviors, right? This growth mindset lives, right, in the ability to not see failure as fatal, to not see talent as stagnant, okay? To not see it as static, but rather that if you try hard, you can get better at something. So are your words and are your actions, right, affirming a growth mindset or fixed mindset? This is so difficult, right? But when a kid shanks a ball 50 yards wide of a goalpost when they're 5 yards out, if our reaction is this for the next 10 minutes, that kid's going to be less likely to take risks, right? Because we're like, you made a mistake, it's the end of the world, you're terrible, right? But what if our reaction is, we got to brush that off, we got to do better on the next one, right? You're affirming, I see it, it was a mistake, but you can grow from this, right? Constantly, our words and our body language are either affirming or confirming a belief for that player, right? So it's the power of yet, right? It's not allowing a player to go, I'm just not fit, right? I'm just not fast. Oh, I'm just not good at that, right? And we hear this with players all the time. Oh, you want me to play a forward? I'm not good at that. Right? That's not me. Not yet, right? By saying yet, right, and constantly correcting your players with that small tweak in language, right, you're opening up the player to possibility rather than closing them off to a static beat, right? So again, even if you're talking to play, like, hey, I know you don't have a good left foot. Well, they can think, all right, cool. I ain't got to get better at it. I just don't have a good left foot. Well, no, you just don't have a good left foot yet. What do you mean yet? Well, you're going to practice on it, right? And so it's introducing small verbal cues, right? Body language, facial expressions that communicate and affirm growth mindset is what I want. You've got to believe you can get better and that you're not where you are at now forever, right? It means that we're seeing mistakes, and mistakes happen, right? As OFG moments. So often we see young people who are like, oh my gosh. Instead, we want to replace that with, this is an opportunity for growth, right? How can this error or this mistake be the soil and the planting of the seeds for something to grow, right? If you keep missing from 5 yards out, as a soccer coach, keep missing from 5 yards out. I'm not going to keep letting you off for that, but like we can sit down and be like, what is the opportunity here? The opportunity here is for you to read the ball better. The opportunity here is to work on your weak foot. What is the opportunity here for you to grow and get better? And every moment that we make an error, and sometimes it may have been a one-off error, and then the opportunity to grow here is to acknowledge it and move on, right? But the way you communicate with a player, the way you're giving them feedback, right, verbally and non-verbally, right, is either going to affirm that mistakes are fatal and they're bad and we should avoid them at all costs, or they're willing to challenge ourselves and push ourselves. And when we do fail, that we fail forward because we're like, I get to grow here. This is an opportunity for growth, right? And so as we think about it in the more traditional language settings, the more traditional verbal communication, right? It's not allowing for phrases like this to just live within your team or even within yourself, right? Like, I give up, right? Or I made a mistake, right? Because our players are starting to be like, yeah, it's on me, my bad, right? Okay, like, but what does that mean? Like, we're okay with the mistake, or, it's fine. We worked hard enough. No, we've got to push ourselves, right, and our players to start using language that is far more growth orientated, right? Asking themselves, is this really the best, right? Saying, mistakes help me learn, and this is what I learned, right? Like, coach, I got you. I know I messed up. I didn't step up quick enough with the offside trap. This is what I learned from that, right? And you yourself as a coach gets to model this. Do you mess up the rules for a drill? Did you forget to pack something for an away trip? Whatever it is, if they see you getting frustrated and angry and upset, they're like, oh, wow, that's how coach really sees mistakes? Or are you saying, hey guys, I made a mistake, gonna own it, and it won't happen again next time because this is what I'm gonna do. I learned from it, right? So you're now not just saying it, you're now not just utilizing your body language and facial expressions, you're modeling it, okay? And as we're thinking about the words and why words are important, right? We want to think about how, right, when we're speaking with a young person or a player, however young they may be, right, is we're thinking about the language you're using when we're giving communication to them, when we're asking things from them. If we're consistently saying, you need to do that, you're piling an onus on them, like that they're in this by themselves, right? This is all on you. You need to go figure this out by yourself, right? Or we tend to say, hey, I need you to get fit by next season. I need that. It's like, well, that's nice for you, right? When we start framing all our language around we need you to, or we need to do this, right? It becomes a communal effort. It becomes a growth opportunity where we're all invested in. And as a coach, I would argue this is exactly what you're there for, right? This is what you want to be there for. You want to be a partner in someone's growth, in a young person's growth, in an athlete's development. So saying you and putting that all on them, it's not what we want to be doing. Saying I, we know it's not about us, right? So let's move away from that language and say we. We as a team need to figure out how we can get you on the field. We need to figure out how we can improve your X, Y, and Z. We. Maybe it's one or two, maybe it's a whole group of you, but tweaking that language is so important. And then as you open up your team to having this more open communication, right? There's another thing we need to be really, really observant about, right? Is how soon, right, are we drawing a line of judgment? What I mean by this is when you start opening up athletes with a growth mindset, with creativity, with a desire to contribute, because we're in a culture of we, right? They started saying, yes, and we could do this. Yes, and we could do that. As a coach, often I instantly say, but you don't know our budget, but we don't have the time, but we don't have the facility, but right? Like we want to shut it down. And then our players become less creative, become less forthcoming, become less communicative, right? What I want to say is like, let the yes and happen, right? Whenever you're having a discussion, even if it's after a drill, even if it's after a game at halftime, what's going well, what's going poorly, right? If the minute somebody says, yeah, well, they're doing X, Y, and Z, you're like, yeah, but we practice that, right? You're crushing, right? That choice, that openness. Allow that yes and to happen. And then when we get to a point where everyone's been able to communicate what they're thinking, what they're feeling, then draw the line of judgment. Say, okay, well, these are the parameters. These are the things we actually have to work within. Now what choices remain, right? So start with a yes and instead of a yes but, right? When you're debriefing a drill, when you're bringing everyone together, right? People are like, well, this went well, this didn't. Start with it. Let's just go with all the good things. Yes and, yes and, yes and. Now let's go with the yes but, right? And again, it's just a tweaking in words. We're becoming hypersensitive of our vocabulary. So as we think about these things, our body language, our facial expressions, the tweaking to utilizing we, right, to opportunities for growth, to thinking about how do we create choice and say yes and instead of yes but, what are some tools that we can use right now, okay? So we can play some fun games. This is off the field kind of stuff. I get young people to plan a party and they're only allowed to say yes but at first, right? We should have balloons. Yeah, but some people might be allergic to them. We should have cake. Yeah, but some people hate chocolate cake, right? And then get them to create a party that's a yes and you'll see one party happens, one doesn't. You can also do this when you're trying to design a practice or you're trying to do something nice for the team, right? You see them squabbling often. We're like, no, I don't want to do this. I want to do that. You can only say yes and then we'll come down to it, right? And it's together, it's a we. And it's just tweaking in language here. This is stuff you're probably already doing, but by tweaking the language, you become more efficient, right? Clarify language on your team, right? Come up with a team lexicon, a team dictionary and glossary, right? When I was coaching in England, again, soccer, right? When we want the defender to pass the ball back to the goalie, we'd yell, go home, right? That's just a phrase we use. I was yelling at this at one of my players, and she booted the ball out and yells at me. He's like, why do you want me to go home? What have I done? Right? Because I hadn't confirmed to them, I hadn't given clarity around some of the phrases I was going to do. Right? And I think there's hundreds of these examples, right, in sports where the coach might have a sport-specific terminology that they think they mean, right? But do your players understand? So neutralize it. What do you mean by marker player? What do you mean by support? What do you mean by pass? What do you mean by push? What do you mean by work harder? Right? Clarify it, right? And work together as a team around these meanings. And maybe we'll make up some phrases of your own, right? Togetherness, using the words, right? Utilizing a phrase and an action, right? When a mistake happens, we use the brush it off, Jay-Z, brush your shoulders off, right? When a mistake happens, so that they know that what we're modeling with mind, right? With body and with action and with words is, I see the mistake. It's an opportunity for growth. We're moving on. Brush it off. That's what it communicates, right? So as a team, can you come up with some kind of mistake ritual that's acknowledging mistakes are made? We support mistakes. We grow from mistakes. Let's go. We can't say that all in 1 second, but brush it off we can. Okay. And then another thing, right? Becky Burley talks about this incredible coach at University of Florida, having a bench cam, right? Filming yourself on the bench, filming your bench, right? And showing them, hey, what are you communicating to your coaches, to each other, to the players on the team, right? I know teammates are always complaining like, hey, like the bench needs to cheer us on more. Like, and sometimes the bench is like, we're trying to do everything we can. Put on a bench cam, right? See what we're communicating. See, could I look at your bench and know what the current score is, right? Finally, can you utilize your film sessions to be a place where you're utilizing phrases of and opportunities for growth and yet, so that when players are giving feedback, you say, all right, we haven't yet figured out this formation, or we haven't, here's a great opportunity for growth. What's a yes and to what we could do here, right? So utilizing systems and things you're already doing, okay, to utilize some of this new vocabulary. So as we move, we want to start thinking about feedback, right? We want to start thinking about communication and having a culture of feedback within our teams, right? And as we look at this, we need to think about the science behind the fact that group members are constantly looking to their leader to help inform what they should maybe be feeling, what should they maybe be doing. So they're looking at you, they're looking to see, right, how you're communicating, what you are feeling, and therefore how they should be feeling, right? Like, I think things are going well. What does coach think? Nope, coach doesn't. I don't think things are going well either, right? And remembering that we're communicating all these things, right, in public, in private, subtly, overtly, in the moment, right? And so having an awareness, because with awareness comes choice, right, that we're actually communicating out what we want to be communicating out, right? And knowing that the words we use are so important, knowing that if we start labeling a person like, you're funny, you're in shape, you're good at this, you're bad at this, that becomes a label for the person. Instead, can you focus on labeling the action? Hey, that was a really good X, Y, and Z, a good shot, a good pass. Not saying you're a good passer of the ball, because then you're like, all right, I've made it. I've done it. I'm where I need to be. Instead, you're very good at this skill, right? Because other people now are hearing, oh, you can get good at a skill. You don't have to be permanently good at something. You want to label the action, not the player, right? We know also that feedback becomes very difficult for people, right? We want to see feedback as a gift, mainly because we always think feedback, we think critical, right? So we have this staircase reaction to it, which always starts with a deniability kind of piece, right? Where we're like, there isn't even a problem. Why are you giving me this feedback? And so we never get to actually listening to the feedback, right? So we need to know that in order to push back on our young people, right? So in order to know that the first thing when we give feedback, even if it's good sometimes, they're like, is it true or not? If they get over that fact and they're like, yeah, this could be true. They're like, but who's this telling me it? You see this with your players because it's like, well, you're not the coach or you're not the captain. So we need to work on relationship building to ensure that the person's like, okay, there's someone I trust. And then comes the identity trigger. Like, what are you saying about me? right? And so this is where this piece around labeling the action and not the person comes in. If we can be aware of all these things when we're giving feedback, positive or negative, we're going to be, the people receiving it are going to be far more likely to hear it, right? So it's true, you've built a relationship with them and you're labeling the action, not the identity. Now I'm hearing it, right? You're not saying I'm a bad defender. You're saying I made a bad defensive move. And I trust you because you care about me and you've expressed that to me in the past. And it's true because I see it on the video, right? So having that intentionality behind the feedback is so, so, so important, right? Ensuring that we're having more positive interactions in feedback than negative interactions with our players, right? We know that this seems like a high number, but we also know that something as small as a high five or saying someone's name, not high fives right now in COVID, but usually a high five, right? A smile, saying someone's name, checking in with them is a deposit into their bank account. So should you need to make a deduction from that bank account, right? If you have to in the moment be like, you need to do this, right? They're ready for it, right? They're built ready for it. Instead of if the first thing they get at practice is some kind of command or some kind of negative energy, they're not going to be able to take in that feedback, right? And so I'm going to flip through some of these, right? We've talked about having opportunities for growth instead of oh my gosh moments, right? Giving players feedback in glows and grows instead of that was good, that was bad, positive and negative, glows and grows. Immediately we're back into this opportunity instead of shutting it down as in like, this is just how it is. So how can we play this out, right? Last couple of things that we can really implement, right? When you're doing debriefs, right? Literally you've done a drill being like, okay, what are 2 glows and a grow from what just happened? 2 glows and a grow, what just happened, right? And they're saying, okay, what, so what, now what, right? So you're communicating that everything, even if it was good or bad, we say there's glows and grows, right? You're utilizing that type of terminology, right? If you're in an online setting still now, playing charades, right? Doing Pictionary, not just because it's funny, but then you're saying, hey, did you see how it would have helped if you were shorter or clearer in your instruction? Practice, allow them to practice giving each other feedback after you do Pictionary. Hey, like your instructions, they weren't that great. Here's what helped me better. Because I guarantee you that transitions to the field. The same thing, like your communication wasn't clear enough to me. I need it to be clearer. So the activity itself doesn't matter. Most of us know this with games and drills we play. It's the information we synthesize for our players, right, afterwards. And then a fun little game I always used to like to play is that players were only allowed to pick one word that they could say during a scrimmage, right? An inter-squad scrimmage. And seeing then how hard that was. And so then saying, okay, what if we only had 2 words or 3 words or 4 words, right? And we established kind of a 10-word vocabulary that we would go with, that we would know exactly what each other means, exactly what each other's needed, and we were clear in our communication. So that was just a real short breeze through and kind of tip of the iceberg to hopefully get us to start thinking about communication, about feedback, about, verbal, non-verbal, the words we're using, the moments we're using, and how we can be stimulating this even in an online or an offline environment. Our time together flew past. So if this is the kind of stuff you're interested in, if this is the kind of stuff you get involved in, please reach out to us. We do 90-minute, 3-hour, day-long, week-long sessions with teams and coaches. We're also here just to reach out to as a resource. For anyone who wants to, we'll obviously have the recording to you. We could dive into this topic for days, weeks, and months. Hopefully this spurs you on to just start thinking about that a little bit more. So I appreciate you all for joining us today. And hopefully we'll be seeing you again soon on our next edition of Coach's Corner. Take care.